Okay, so hello everybody, good morning and welcome to EduphoreIAS, the Hindu analysis. Today is 12th of June 2023 and we are starting with the Hindu front page as usual. Fine. So let us start with the front page. First is cookies to boycott peace panel over CM's presence. So what is it all about? You know what's going on in Manipur violence, kind of ethnic violence between cookies and Mithis basically. Fine. So it's a kind of ethnic violence which has took place in, and still the situation is not that, you can say normal. But for bringing normalcy, the government of India, especially the Home Ministry, came up with solution to form a 51 members this committee or panel, you can say. So this 51 members committee, let us say, basically the governor Ansuya Uiki will chair 51 member committee. So of course, if chaired by this committee is chaired by honorable governor, so of course the presence of CM is of course becomes utmost importance, because of course he is somewhere the real head of the state. Fine. So and of course, and so in order to bring normalcy and in order to bring this establish the law and order situation, so of course for that purpose the CM must be there on the panel or the committee. Fine. But this has not gone well with the cookies and they are basically protesting or boycotting his presence. I mean the CM of, किसकी बात कर रहे हैं हम? Chief Minister of मणिपुर एन बीरेन सिंह की, इनकी प्रेजेंस, इनकी शामिल होने की वजह से उस कमेटी में कुकीज़ को ये पसंद नहीं आया एंड इसलिए वो प्रोटेस्ट कर रहे हैं. ठीक है. इससे ही रिलेटेड आज हम एक एडिटोरियल पेज पे एन के नारायण साहब ने आर्टिकल लिखा है, बहुत ही बढ़िया, आई मीन अ गुड पीस ऑफ आर्टिकल. सो उसको हम डिस्कस करेंगे. वैसे दिस इशू हैज़ बीन देयर इन द लास्ट मेनी डेज, बट विल सी, विल डिस्कस दैट आर्टिकल फॉर सम let us say different insights or additional informations. Fine. Cyclone Biparjoy said to hit Kutch, Gujarat gears up. Okay, so cyclone, we have already discussed about cyclones. Even there we have discussed about the Biparjoy as well in our 2-3 days back this Hindu analysis. So I think we should not today waste time or invest further time over this cyclones. Fine. Biparjoy. Okay, moving to next. From this page, what is important for us is there are certain things. Whenever you open the paper, जब भी आप first paper open करते हो, you need to just have a quick glance that what is important, because some things are mentioned here in the side, this left right side, where you might find that yes, this you need to cover this news and the internal pages. So governors cannot indefinitely hold back bills. It could lead to breakdown of parliamentary democracy. This article seems to be important for GS2 polity and governance section. So of course we will discuss this as well on the opinion page just next to the editorial page. Fine. Okay. So let us move quickly to the next pages, see what is important. All of this, only politics going on, so no need to spend here much time. So चलो क्विकली हम नेक्स्ट पेजेस पे मूव करते हैं, देखते हैं किस पेज पे क्या इंपॉर्टेंट हमारे लिए. अगेन पॉलिटिक्स एंड ओनली पॉलिटिक्स गोइंग हियर. सो इन पेजेस को हम सेफली छोड़ सकते हैं. ठीक है. अगेन पॉलिटिक्स. ठीक है. Okay. Politics, all politics going on. Okay. So for this prelims, there could be a passing reference or fact related to Carnatic music. Carnatic. This might be the reference for Carnatic music. Fine. just take the context from here, not that important. Rest things are not that important. Okay, education. Okay. This is related to section education page for that modern classroom. Okay. Okay, finally landed on the most important page and most important article for the day as well. Page number 8, editorial, and we will be focusing starting our discussion today with this piece of article written by, you can see his designation, you know. So Shri M.K. Narayanan ji and M.K. Narayan Saab, see, happen to be Director of Intelligence Bureau, former Director, former National Security Advisor NSA, and former Governor of West Bengal. So you can see his designations, what important posts he held in past. Let us start with, he is saying Manipur, a rude reminder of Northeast tensions. So he is saying whatever happened in Manipur, it was basically an ethnic conflict, fine, between two sets of, let us say, communities, Kukis and Mithis. They are basically the tribal or ethnic groups, you can say, a community. So he is saying that whatever happened in Manipur was basically a rude reminder of Northeast tensions. Means not all is well in Northeast, fine. Even after so many of developments which has been taken place in the past few years, fine. Especially the government come up with the donor and all special ministry, special departments for northeastern states, and quite the current establishment has ended lots of focus on developing the northeastern region and integrating the northeast with the mainstream, or you can say with Delhi, fine. Okay, or the rest of India. So what is saying? Violence in Manipur, which has gone on for a month now, claimed well over 100 lives, fine. So this already over a month now claimed well over 100 lives. अब तक 100 से ज़्यादा लोग मर चुके हैं, displaced thousands more, and has opened many raw wounds that most people had hoped belonged to bygone era. Okay, the specter of an unbridgeable divide. So it is unbridgeable divide between Meiteis on the one hand and Kuki, Chin, Mizo, Zomi, Naga tribes on the other is now all too evident. So I hope you understand the whole issue was between two sets of communities. On one side, there are Meiteis, and the other side there are 4 or 5 different tribal groups: Kukis, Chin, Mizo, Zomi, and Naga. Fine. So you can see majority versus minority. You can say somewhere the issue, and any resolution will demand utmost sensitive handling. Yes, resolution will demand utmost sensitive handling, especially when there is a something related to civil wars. This is not exactly the civil war, or some ethnic kind of conflicts. Then there we, especially the administration needs to take into account or have utmost care or sensitivity while dealing with such kind of situations, because only power or authority cannot serve the purpose. We need to have sensitivity for the people as well, the community as well, taking into account their traditional, cultural and alongside the ethnic practices. Fine. The ethnic divide, ethnicity, I hope you understand, the group of people sharing same, traditional, let us say, culture and social practices, or different kinds of this, of course, such kind of traditional practices. So ethnicity, violence seems to suggest that little has changed in the Northeast, notwithstanding, फिर भी the many developments in place, thus the healing process is likely to be a long drawn out one. So he is saying safely that even though lots of progress has taken place in the past in the Northeast, but still, notwithstanding with those sets of development, still the Northeast, still there has इतनी चेंज नहीं आई है उस लार्ज स्केल पे जो आनी चाहिए थी इन द नॉर्थ ईस्ट, एंड देयरफॉर ही इज सजेस्टिंग कि जो हीलिंग प्रोसेस है वो नॉर्मलसी जो लाने की बात चल रही है उसके लिए ज़रूरी हो जाता है, एंड दिस सीम्स टू बी अ लॉन्ग ड्रॉन आउट प्रोसेस की टाइम टेकिंग होगा, टाइम लगेगा इसको नॉर्मल करने में. सो नाउ सम बैकग्राउंड और सम इनसाइट्स फ्रॉम हिज दिस साइड. So there is still a divide. He says there is still a divide in Northeast. most people across the country had reason to believe that the Northeast had over time become well and truly integrated. Okay, so especially since the current establishment, from since 2014, so he is saying that most people have this, have this reason to believe that Northeast had over time become well and truly integrated with India mainstream, let us say. Also that there were now more commonalities rather than differences among the various tribes and communities. The ethnic violence in Manipur consequently has come as a rude reminder. कह रहे हैं कि जब सब लोग मेजॉरिटी ऑफ पीपल आर बिलीविंग कि नॉर्थ ईस्ट में कुछ चेंज आया है, बट फिर भी इस लेवल की लार्ज स्केल की वायलेंस होती है, सो इट्स अ काइंड ऑफ रूड रिमाइंडर कि नो, नॉट एवरीथिंग इज और नॉट ऑल इज वेल. फाइन. ओके, नॉट विथ स्टैंडिंग इम्प्रूव्ड कम्युनिकेशंस, कहते हैं कि फिर भी इम्प्रूव्ड कम्युनिकेशंस में इंप्रूवमेंट देखने को मिली है. बेटर ट्रांजिट, ट्रांसपोर्ट, कम्युनिकेशन फैसिलिटीज, सपोर्ट फॉर द स्पेशल नीड्स ऑफ द रीजन, देयर डज स्टिल एग्जिस्ट. सब कुछ किया है, बट स्टिल एग्जिस्ट अ डिवाइड बिटवीन द ट्राइब्स एंड प्लेन्स पीपल विद इन द रीजन. बट अभी भी जो ट्राइबल ग्रुप्स हैं और जो प्लेन्स में रहते हैं लोग, दोनों के बीच में एक ज़बरदस्त तरीके की डिवाइड देखने को मिल रही है आज भी. ठीक है, इवन आफ्टर सो मच ऑफ डेवलपमेंटल वर्क्स. फाइन. ओके, so it is easy to pontificate whenever an outbreak of violence of this magnitude takes place. Pontificate is something like expressing your opinion in a dogmatic way. Fine. जब भी कुछ होता है फटाफट बोलने को तैयार हो जाते हैं, बट बिना सोचे समझे. So pontification is expressing your views or opinion without thinking much, or let us say expressing your opinion in a dogmatic way. Dogma, I hope you understand. Even in previous discussion we have had this word dogma. So pontificate whenever an outbreak of violence of this magnitude takes place, and to harp on certain aspects such as existence of an excess of region-centric calculus, lack of internal cohesion, and ethnic caste rivalries. So these are the factors he is underlining that actually comes in during the debates, or whenever somebody is expressing the opinion. So these are the factors basically being labeled as a causes for internal tensions in the Northeast and violence. Such aspects fortunately had become lesser in number in recent times, indeed, but it is possible that the fraying of our composite culture in recent times, which has also affected other parts of India, is casting a shadow over the Northeast. So जो कहते हैं कि जो other parts of India में जो चीज़ें चल रही हैं, ठीक है, other regions, not just in North India but any other part of India, if something is going on related to, let us say, composite culture. Fine. Composite culture is basically synthesis of all the cultures, different cultures, basically goes with the concept of unity and diversity. So if something is happening against or going against this against this diversity, let's just say unity and diversity, so of course if something is happening in one part of the country, to a certain extent even influences the other regions of the country as well. Fine. Okay, further, an additional dimensions to this in the Northeast is the presence of ethnic subnationalism. So author is saying, Mr. Narayan is saying that additional dimension to these issues could be presence of ethnic subnationalism. So nationalism, you hope all of us I hope understand. Subnationalism means nationalism, let us talking about at the level of country. Fine. Subnationalism we are talking about at the level of a state or particular region even. Fine. Ethnic subnationalism, so ethnicity और ethnicity के level पे जहाँ पे subnationalism means central level पे, state level पे, उससे भी नीचे regional level पे, और you can say particularly tribals के level पे और ethnic level पे ethnicity. Fine. And identity politics is an aggravated form. So ये कहते हैं कि another जो dimensions है इस majorly instability in Northeast is there are two things: ethnic subnationalism and identity politics. Fine. कि अपनी identity को लेकर के काफ़ी लोग sensitive रहते हैं और उसी को कैसे politicians use करते हैं, कैसे politicize करते हैं उस चीज़ को, even कि this can sow the seeds for future conflicts. Apart from this, ethnic allegiance had oftentimes been in conflict with the mainstream nationalism or vice versa previously. Of course, so ethnic allegiance, अगर आपकी allegiance किसी एक particular tribe के लिए है या region के लिए है, so it can be in direct conflict with the nationalism, fine, with mainstream nationalism or vice versa. But it was hoped that such tensions had subsided, fine. But कहते हैं कि पहले ये उम्मीद की गई थी कि इस तरह के टेंशन सब कम हो गई है बिकॉज डेवलपमेंट टेकिंग प्लेस इन नॉर्थ ईस्ट, सब कुछ बढ़िया चल रहा था, बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली सच थिंग हैपेंड. द मणिपुर डेवलपमेंट्स imply that in much of the northeast, ethnic identities still overshadow and overwhelm all other consideration. So कहते हैं कि इससे ये पता लगता है जो हुआ मणिपुर में कि आज भी नॉर्थ ईस्ट में स्पेशली ethnic identities जो है that overshadows or overwhelm all other consideration. ठीक है, so वहाँ के लोगों के लिए स्पेशली ट्राइबल ग्रुप्स के लिए ऑफ कोर्स ethnicity जो है that is ultra kind of nationalism, ultra nationalism you can say, means their local practices, their local community shared culture is overpowers or overshadows rather what their let us say mainstream nationalism or even mainstream or you can say composite culture, fine. So ठीक भी बात है, ट्राइबल के लिए उसके लिए सबसे ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट क्या होगी, उसकी खुद की traditional values, practices, whatever he has been following. So what is also disturbing is that according to some reports from the region, consolidation efforts by different tribal entities were resulting in subterranean pressures, fine, and the result is that many issues which were deemed settled seem to have been reopened. So कहते हैं कि subterranean pressures भी local level से many on the issues of especially tribal entities के लेवल पे, कहते हैं कुछ ट्राइबल एंटिटीज जैसे वहाँ पे हमने देखा कि 4-5 ट्राइबल ग्रुप एक साइड है, दूसरी साइड सिर्फ मिति. सो ऑफ कोर्स द efforts, let us say individual efforts at the level of particular tribal groups, even opening or reopening the past wounds you can say, or are the reasons for such conflicts which are taking place today, fine. This applies especially to Manipur, where of late there have been incipient signs of resurgence of ultra-nationalistic tendency like chauvinistic and all. The confrontation between Meiteis versus Kuki Naga ultra-radicalism. Radicalism, you understand? Radicalism is you are having another set of you can say you believe in what the majority against what majority believes, or you have altogether different viewpoint, or you can say opinion, or against or apart from what actually the mainstream opinion or views or thing is, fine. So radicalism is something which is away from mainstream, fine. So ultra radicalism is one thing, but ultra even superlative degree. So as evidenced in Manipur, these past weeks needs to be viewed in the larger context of the conflict between the plains Meiteis. So initially the conflict of course he underlined is between plains and those living in where tribal zones or tribal areas. So conflict is between plains, that is Meiteis, and the sets of tribals like Kuki, Naga and all, Chin and Mizos, fine. So it is an issue of plain versus tribal group, these tribes or tribal hill tribes basically. So Kuki, Mizo, Chin, Zomi, hill tribes. So plain versus hill. What we witness in Manipur today is a conflict between changed up Meitei. Chauvinism is excessive patriotism basically, or ultranationalism, seeking to consolidate their position within Manipur and across the region. So the issue started because Meiteis, Meitei chauvinism, or you can say ultra-nationalistic groups among Meiteis, wants to consolidate their position within Manipur and across the region. So that's why the issue started between such groups. In opposition to the Kukis, Mizos and other tribes, the Meiteis may lack a significant militaristic profile, but the Meiteis had earlier on developed a strategy of networking with other northeastern resurgent outfits and militant groups at one level and with Maoist groups in the hinterland states of the country at another. This is a matter of record. So कहते हैं कि अगर issues ये develop हुआ मणिपुर में, so it is because of the ultra nationalistic or chauvinistic feeling of Meiteis and their basically the thinking, or you can say because they want to re-establish, you can say, or consolidate their position in not just in Manipur but across the northeastern states, and they don't even and in this process they even take the help of, you can say, other militaristic from this groups or even Maoist. Another red zone areas India के आपने सुना होगा, Chhattisgarh and all. Maoist is of course those who feel they have been neglected or ignored by the process by the state in the developmental process. So they take extra, they become anti-state elements, let us say, and wage war against the state itself. जैसे आप लोगों ने देखा होगा कि अभी लास्ट मंथ ही मेरे ख्याल छत्तीसगढ़ में Maoist groups ने Naxalites basically, even you can say Maoists जो believe in the philosophy of Maoist, so they used to what, काफ़ी soldiers को उन्होंने IED blast के through शहीद कर दिया था. So these are the things which takes place there. Currently the polarization between the majority Meitei and the other tribal communities. So majority में कौन है? Meitei है, and the other tribal groups जैसे चीन, कुकी, जोमी, नागा, इसलिए इतने लोग इकट्ठे हैं क्योंकि majority में नहीं है. Minority तो इकट्ठे आती है, majority क्यों आएगी? ठीक है. So polarization is basically a division between two, let us say, extreme groups. ठीक है. When you divide some set of people, let us say, or the people on the basis of religion, even ethnicity, fine, language and all. So in Manipur appears total and irreconcilable. So कहते हैं कि this polarization between Meitei group, which is majority, and the other tribal communities in Manipur appears total and irreconcilable. Means इन दोनों के बीच में conciliation हो ही नहीं सकती. Fine. Seems to be irreconcilable. Notwithstanding the peace moves by the central authorities, fresh outbreaks of violence continue. Relocation of the two communities is taking place vigorously, with parts of the state being designated as Meitei and Kuki respectively. Okay. कहते हैं कि उसके बाद जो कन्फ्लिक्ट हुआ उसके बाद रीलोकेशन की का जो काम है वो चल रहा है. इवन सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ने पीस इस्टेब्लिश करने के लिए स्टेप्स लिए हैं. उसी प्रोसेस में आप देखते हो कि जो हमने फ्रंट पेज पे डिस्कस किया कि एक कमेटी फॉर्म की है सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ने, यूनियन होम मिनिस्ट्री ने, 51 मेंबर्स कमेटी हेडेड बाय गवर्नर ऑफ मणिपुर. फाइन. So and some places have been even designated as Meitei and Kuki dominated, let us say, or is the demand for separate administration, which is always in the case with respect to Northeast. So separate administration की जो demand है, it prelude to the division of state along these lines is currently gaining momentum. So which is prelude to this division of state gaining traction or momentum nowadays, means they are demanding separate administration. Fine, like in Northeast we have provision for this special administrative machineries, fine, for certain sets of tribal groups under 5th and 6th schedule. So the state government, more specifically Chief Minister, has come under severe attack by the Kuki tribes. That's why you see on the first page that Kukis are protesting against the inclusion of Chief Minister in 51 member panel for the ongoing violence. This is accompanied by accusation that the police are siding with the Meiteis attackers. This is what happens. I mean, दो लोग अगर लड़ रहे हैं, आप एक की साइड लोगे या नहीं भी लोगे तो भी एक्यूज आप यही होगे कि भाई आप एक के साथ पार्शियल हो या उसकी साइड ले रहे हो, दूसरे की नहीं ले रहे हो. Isn't it? Yes. So Meitei elements in turn have threatened to form a civilian defense force, CDF. ठीक है. So कुकी ने के प्रोटेस्ट करने का एक रीज़न ये है कि जो ऑनरेबल सीएम साहब हैं ये साथ किसका दे रहे हैं, Meiteis का. एंड Meiteis ने फर्दर ये भी कहा है, थ्रेट किया है कि हम सिविलियन डिफेंस फोर्स भी बनाएंगे टू प्रोटेक्ट देयर पीपल अगेंस्ट अटैक्स बाय कुकी मिलिटेंट्स. ओल्ड इश्यूज आर बीइंग resurrected, reopened, such as the burning of the historic centenary gate in Lysang village by Meitei miscreants, thus sharpening the divide. So historically the Centenary Gate है village by this Laisang village in Manipur, these were basically burned out by the Meitei miscreants. Then thus further it is one of the reasons between the divide, or you can say conflict between Meiteis and Kukis. Demands for the dismissal of the state government and the imposition of president rule under 356 article, alongside a demand by tribal groups such as the Kukis, Chin, Mizos, Jomis, urging the center to give the region inhabited by them a separate administration, are being vociferously raised. So ये चीज़ें रेज की जा रही हैं इन स्पेशली कुकीज़ ग्रुप्स के साइड से कि जो सीएम साहब जो अभी स्टेट गवर्नमेंट ऑफ मणिपुर है उसको बर्खास्त किया जाए, ठीक है, एंड इसके साथ साथ ही प्रेसिडेंट रूल इम्पोज किया जाए, एंड उसके साथ हमारे लिए सेपरेट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन की भी प्रोविजन की जाए, ठीक है. दीज आर द डिमांड्स बाय कुकीज़, ठीक है. नाउ फोकसिंग ऑन द सॉल्यूशंस. We have already discussed problems. Let us focus on solutions. So what could be the way forward or the solutions? So he is saying whatever Union Minister, Home Minister Amit Shah's recent visit to Manipur promised much, but it is highly uncertain whether the solution that he has proposed, which is the standard prescription in all such situations, are the right ones at this time. His announcement of judicial probe into the ethnic violence, हम इसकी बात पहले भी कर चुके हैं, 3-member judicial panel अनाउंस किया था होम मिनिस्टर साहब ने, and of a 3-member committee headed by a judge has been well received. His proposal for the creation of unified command to oversee security in the state, however, appears draconian in the prevailing circumstances. The announcement of Central Bureau of Investigation (CBI) inquiry into specific incidents of violence is a welcome measure. However, changing the Director General of Police, who belongs to the Kuki tribe, on grounds of, so Kuki tribe से जो DGP belong करते थे उनको हटा दिया गया. So again it could be one of the reason for Kuki to protest or to of course make the situation worse. So DGP साहब जो Kuki community से belong करते थे उनको हटाया गया था on the ground of ineffectiveness may only serve to heighten the gap between the warring Meitei and Kuki. Of course अगर आप already एक group प्रोटेस्ट कर रही है आपके खिलाफ और आप उसके ग्रुप के किसी नुमाइंदे को हटा देते हो इस इतने बड़े पोस्ट से, DGP लेवल पोस्ट से, सो ऑफ कोर्स दैट ऑफ कोर्स दिस पर्टिकुलर ग्रुप कैन बी मोर violent and all. So senior voices must take the lead. Senior is basically sensible voices must take the lead in solution. So what is needed at this time is for senior voices to play a leading role, notwithstanding the fact that the Northeast has been spared serious violence for some years now. कहते हैं कि ये फैक्ट है कि पिछले कुछ सालों से शांति बहाल हुई है नॉर्थ ईस्ट में एंड सीरियस वायलेंस नहीं देखने को मिला है, बट द रियलिटी इज, सच्चाई कुछ और है, इज दैट इट इज़ स्टिल अ वोलेटाइल रीजन, कि अभी भी ये स्टेबल रीजन नहीं है, अभी भी वोलेटिलिटी है नॉर्थ ईस्ट में. इट इज़ इन द प्रोसेस ऑफ चेंजिंग and adapting to newer circumstances, fine, but Northeast is heading towards transition or going through a transitory phase or transition where it is changing and adapting to newer circumstances. What the center needs to achieve is an optimal position, even if it may seem like giving far too many concessions. So कहते हैं कि सेंटर को एक ऑप्टिमल पोजीशन लेना होगा इस स्टेज पे, even if means giving too many concessions. Fine. Delhi is on test as to how it would adjust or react to the new situation that has presented itself. This demands innovative thinking. Even as states in the region crave greater autonomy, the process of achieving a proper equilibrium requires both sensitivity and out-of-the-box thinking. So कहते हैं कि now is a time, it's a testing time for the center, Delhi, to have innovative solutions and to have alongside on the lines of sensitivity and out of thinking driven solutions, fine, or the measures. Understanding cultural factors, जरूरी है कि हम ethnicity जो है cultural factors हैं उनको हम ध्यान में रखें, then you would be able to come out with the better solutions which would be acceptable to the different tribal groups. Understanding cultural factors are critical कल्चरल फैक्टर्स को समझना क्रिटिकल है, स्पेसिफिकली इन टाइम्स ऑफ कन्फ्लिक्ट। बिल्कुल ठीक बात है। द मिटी वर्सेस ट्राइबल डिवाइड इज बोथ अ कल्चरल एंड सोशोलॉजिकल फिनोमिना। Of course, cultural and sociological is what basically the ethnicity is more or less related to. So it's an ethnic phenomena or ethnic city related conflict. So Miti versus tribal divide is both a cultural and sociological phenomena or conflict. Solution demands a combination. Now he is providing the solution. So provides which would be combination of adjusting to realities coupled with an understanding of the moral imperatives of numerous tribal communities that dot the northeastern landscape. So कहते हैं कि solution जो है should be combination of adjusting to the realities, जो भी सच्चाई अभी है on ground, coupled with an understanding of moral imperatives of the numerous. एक understanding भी develop करने की ज़रूरत है between different sets of communities or the tribal groups in the northeastern landscape. The art is, so इसमें art क्या होगा? To come up with an agreement in which both or more parties to the dispute think it is the best from their point of view. So ऐसे solution निकालने की ज़रूरत पड़ेगी हमें जहाँ पे दोनों ही sets of group जो opposition में हैं उनको ये लगे कि yes government has come up with the best solutions for us, ठीक है? And this is how we can gain their trust. A solution to the Manipur imbroglio in quick time is important. If a satisfactory solution is not found early, it could aggravate centrifugal tendencies that have not entirely been dissipated. So कहते हैं कि अगर earlier solution नहीं ढूंढा गया तो हो सकता है कि ये situation और aggravate हो जाए, ठीक है, and then it might become difficult to handle. Fine. Despite the best efforts of successive government in Delhi and in the region over the past 75 years, the region is, कहते हैं कि पिछले 75 सालों में जो भी गवर्नमेंट्स ने एफर्ट्स लिए हैं, still the region is beset with the people belonging to different cultures, often confronting each other. The issue is different tribes, different cultures, different ethnicity. So lots of diversity you see in Northeast. That's one of the reasons why such kind of things going on. Delhi has consistently tried to avoid an adversarial policy and instead has sought dialogue. ठीक है कि अब सेंटर ने अच्छी मतलब डायलॉग पे फोकस किया है, नॉट एडवर्सरियल पॉलिसी. दिस इज स्टिल अभी भी द बेस्ट रेमेडी जो है सोल्यूशन है अवेलेबल वाइल अवॉइडिंग एनी इंप्रेशन ऑफ वीकनेस ऑन द पार्ट ऑफ दिल्ली. कहते हैं कि अभी भी दिस इज द बेस्ट सोल्यूशन दैट गवर्नमेंट शुड involved more in dialogue and debates, discussion than taking any adversarial policy, which has been the case in the past as well. So further, Delhi needs to acknowledge, ये ज़रूरी है कि दिल्ली इस चीज़ को recognize करे. Delhi means center actually, we are talking about central government. Acknowledge to itself that the situation in Manipur poses a problem of no mean magnitude. No mean magnitude. ठीक है, कहते हैं कि जो प्रॉब्लम ऑफ मणिपुर में अभी है दैट इज नो मीन मैग्नीट्यूड, कि इतना छोटा नहीं है, ठीक है. वी नीड टू कंसीडर दिस एंड आंसर हैज टू बी फाउंड सूनर रादर देन लेटर बिफोर इट इग्नाइट्स सिमिलर कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स एल्सवेयर इन द रीजन वेयर सच टेंशंस आल्सो लॉक. ठीक है, सो कहते हैं कि अदर पार्ट्स ऑफ नॉर्थ ईस्ट में भी सिचुएशन ऐसी हो सकती है, ऐसे इस तरह के हमें सिचुएशन देखने को मिल सकते हैं. सो इट्स वेरी वेरी इम्पेरेटिव एट दिस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम कि सेंटर जल्दी से जल्दी कोई सोल्यूशन निकाले which must be acceptable to both sets of conflicting groups. ठीक है, एंड ये तभी होगा जब उनको कॉन्फिडेंस मिलेंगे. ऑल कम्युनिटीज अक्रॉस द रीजन क्रेव सिक्योरिटी. सो सिक्योरिटी इशू तो है ही है. द इम्प्रेशन दैट दिल्ली इज न्यूट्रल इन एनी कन्फ्लिक्ट एंड इज ओनली ऑन द साइड ऑफ जस्टिस हैज टू बी प्रॉपरली कम्युनिकेटेड. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है कि सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट किसी एक कम्युनिटी और एथनिक ग्रुप या ट्राइबल ग्रुप की साइड नहीं ले रही है. फाइन, रादर अपने स्टैंड में न्यूट्रल है. सो दिस मैसेज हैज टू बी कम्युनिकेटेड लाउडली. ठीक है, द की टास्क फॉर दिल्ली वुड बी टू बी सीन टू एक्ट ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ ओवर रीचिंग मोरल प्रिंसिपल्स विदाउट हाउएवर मेकिंग अ वर्च्यू ऑफ सच प्रिंसिपल्स. ठीक है, सो कहते हैं कि दिल्ली लोगों को ये लगना चाहिए कि गवर्नमेंट जो है वो काम कर रही है मोरल प्रिंसिपल्स पे विदाउट हाउएवर मेकिंग अ वर्च्यू ऑफ सच प्रिंसिपल्स. बट इसका दिखावा नहीं करना, ठीक है, ब्रांडिंग नहीं करनी. टुडे देयर इज इनफ कॉमन पर्पस एंड प्रिंसिपल्स अक्रॉस द पार्टीशन डिवाइड. व्हाट इज ऑफन एब्सेंट इज अ वीक डेमोक्रेटिक रिजॉल्व एंड एन एबिलिटी टू एक्ट इन द शेयर्ड नेशनल इंटरेस्ट. सो कहते हैं कि आज अगर हम बात करें तो इनफ कॉमन पर्पस एंड प्रिंसिपल्स दोनों ही हैं, across the partition divide, but what is often absent is a weak democratic resolve. Democratic resolve की कमी है, लगता है ऐसा, and an ability to act in the shared national interest, and एक democratic resolve and एक ability की कमी है जो national interest को center में रख के काम करें या steps ले solutions लाए, ठीक है. So this was a very good piece of article. I hope you could understand this, and very good insights as well as solution provided by this Shri M. K. Narayan ji. Let us focus to the next article. This could be from GS1 society, or especially the women and empowerment and all. So let us see. Though a politician, but we have nothing to do here with the politics. We'll be focusing more on the good, especially the insights, or of course whatever the stance is, neutral or all will be fine. So see, Gaurav Gogoi is a member of Parliament Congress from Assam. Okay. So what he is writing today? He is saying amplify the subject of adolescent girls nutrition. कहते हैं कि amplify किया जाए subject of adolescent girl nutrition. Adolescent girls nutrition की जो nutrition है उसकी को amplify किया जाए बड़े level पे, magnitude, fine. So basically सबसे पहले तो आपको ये पता हो कि adolescent girl nutrition. So adolescent होता क्या है? Adolescent is basically an age group. Different definitions हैं. WHO इसको 10 से 19 साल की age group को adolescent age group मानता है. But generally we see even 10 to 19 has been labeled as adolescent. 13 to 19, sorry. WHO, according to WHO, it's 10 to 19. ठीक है? Otherwise, generally say 13 to 19. Okay. So whatever is that, just keep in mind that this is the age group to which we consider as adolescent. So what he's saying, context is he's saying that to unlock the full potential of India's future, we have to prioritize the health and nutrition of its adolescent girls. कहते हैं कि अगर इंडिया को अपनी अनलॉक करनी है फ्यूचर पोटेंशियल को टू द फुलेस्ट, इट बिकम्स इम्पेरेटिव दैट वी प्रायोरिटाइज, हम किसको प्रायोरिटाइज करें, टू द हेल्थ ऑफ एडोलेसेंट गर्ल्स. ठीक है. एडोलेसेंस इज अ पाइवटल पीरियड ऑफ कॉग्निटिव डेवलपमेंट. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है, इट्स अ पाइवटल पीरियड ऑफ कॉग्निटिव डेवलपमेंट बिकॉज वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट समवेयर 10 to 19 years of age. So of course it's a very imperative and pivotal in the formative years, and therefore improving access to nutritional during this second window of opportunity of growth. कहते हैं कि इस टाइम पे improve करना access to nutrition during this second window of opportunity of growth. Fine. He's termed this adolescent age as the second window opportunity of growth. Fine. Okay. Compensates for any nutrient deficiency acquired during early developmental stage in the girl child. So of course, why second window of opportunity for growth? He has labeled the adolescent age group or adolescent this age to the second window of opportunity of growth. The first window of opportunity of growth according to him is basically what we acquire during early developmental stages in the girl child. Fine, that is below 10 years. Furthermore, adolescent health is a significant indicator of women's labor force participation, जो कि कुछ सालों से गिरती जा रही है इंडिया में. ठीक है. सो ये कहते हैं कि एडोलेसेंट हेल्थ जो है इज अगेन एन इम्पॉर्टेंट इंडिकेटर ऑफ वुमेन्स लेबर फॉर पार्टिसिपेशन. फाइन. इंडिया इन द लॉन्ग टर्म एज बेटर न्यूट्रिशन इम्प्रूव्स एवरी यंग गर्ल्स प्रोस्पेक्ट टू पार्टिसिपेट इन प्रोडक्टिव एक्टिविटीज इन इंडिया. सो कहते हैं कि लॉन्ग टर्म में बेटर न्यूट्रिशन, especially if you are providing better nutrition to this set of age groups, adolescent particularly, so we can have a better improve every girl, young girl's prospect to participate in productive activities. Of course we can ensure that they be productive, and alongside that they participate in the overall labor force. Fine. Thus country B holds a colossal opportunity to add to its nation's demographic dividend by investing in nutritional interventions in adolescent girls. So कहते हैं कि हमें अब अगर अपनी डेमोग्राफिक डिविडेंड को रीप करना है, उसका अच्छे से यूटिलाइज करें हम, एंड उसके लिए इम्पेरेटिव इम्पॉर्टेंट हो जाता है कि हम जो एडोलेसेंट गर्ल्स हैं उनकी न्यूट्रिशन को इंश्योर करें. फाइन. सो दैट दे कैन बिकम प्रोडक्टिव एंड ऐड टू द ओवरऑल ग्रोथ ऑफ द नेशन. ओके. एवर ग्रोइंग न्यूट्रिशन कंसर्न, सॉरी. सो This has been an ever growing concern, fine, related to nutrition in adolescent girls. So adolescent girls are particularly vulnerable to undernutrition and anemia, fine, due to the onset of menstruation, fine. So कहते हैं कि whenever menstruation starts or on so girls become particularly vulnerable of adolescent girls in particular becomes vulnerable of two things, that is undernutrition, alongside that anemia, so the finding of the National Family Health Survey 5 NFHS 5 2019-21 cycle confirmed these concerns as a staggering 59.1% of adolescent girls were found to be anemic, fine. So 59.1%, almost 59% of adolescent girls in India, according to NFHS National Family Health Survey round 5, which took place during 2019-21, are anemic, fine. With the NFHS 4 numbers also having reported over 41, so NFHS 4 में भी इतनी percentage notice की गई थी of school going girls as underweight. The numbers showcase a worrying trend. देखो NFHS 4 जो इससे पिछला वाला सर्वे था उसमें 41.9% means almost 42% school going girls were shown as underweight, but now this has but now anemic अगर देखोगे NFHS 5 में, so it is somewhere, of course it's showing a worrying trend, चिंता की बात है. 42.9, today it's almost 59%, fine. So what makes the situation more complex is the fact that the range of factors, so he labels gives a range of factors from environmental conditions to cultural norms that lack a gender neutral environment within household affects the nutrition uptake in adolescent girls. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है. Not in urban areas particularly, and now even parents are more concerned, more caring for their girl child. But even if you see today in the, especially when I'm talking about Bharat, or even you can say the backward regions of the country or the pockets, you see that of course there is again still today you find this gender discrimination, fine, even at the level of nutrition, fine, between boy and girl, fine. So this is what he is saying. To a certain extent, cultural norms even responsible for that, and gender neutral environment within a household affect the nutritional uptake in adolescent girls, fine. Gender neutral environment नहीं होने की वजह से, because of lacking of gender neutral environment, such kind of things happens even in the household, at the level of households, ठीक है. So while progress has been made in improving crucial health indicators in the form of various government initiatives that have successfully achieved optimum coverage, so of course he is appreciating the government efforts for improving this overall health, you can say, and of adolescent girls. It is however essential to acknowledge that current health interventions do not specifically focus on the nutritional statuses of adolescent girls, but कहते हैं कि काफ़ी steps लिए गए हैं for optimum coverage, for improving the health indicators, but they had not been taken with respect to the adolescent girls. Means center of these initiatives has never been particularly the adolescent girls. We are as a nation far from realizing the long term consequences. कहते हैं कि as a nation हम काफ़ी दूर हैं इस टर्म को रियलाइज करने से, इसकी consequences को रियलाइज करने से, समझने से, by overlooking the fact of nutritional needs of young girls, fine. Poorly balanced and insufficient diets can lead to cognitive impairments, बिल्कुल ठीक बात है, that affects one's academic performance. This can result in lower educational attainment, of course, can limit opportunities for employment and economic self-sufficiency later. Of course, undernourished adolescent girls are also at a higher risk of chronic disease and pregnancy complications. So because of undernutrition and all, these sets of issues can crop up with adolescent girls, where you see lower educational attainment. If educational attainment is lower, then of course it will limit the opportunities for employment, then further economic self-sufficiency. Further, undernourished adolescent girls are also at the high risk of chronic disease, and even they can face issues during pregnancy as well, fine. pregnancy complications which can lead to a higher healthcare burden. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है, on both families and communities, potentially leading to financial instability and increased poverty. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है. सो अगर आज हम अंडर नरिश रखते हैं अपने एडोलेसेंट गर्ल्स पॉपुलेशन को, सो लेटर ऑन इसकी हमें कॉन्सिक्वेंसेज और कॉस्ट हायर फॉर्म में पे करना पड़ सकता है. दैट वुड बी अ काइंड ऑफ बर्डन ऑन बोथ फैमिलीज एंड कम्युनिटीज एंड governments, fine, potentially leading to financial instability and increased poverty. So if our girls are less healthy and less educated, they are less likely to participate fully in the society or in the workforce. वेरी मच अंडरस्टैंडेबल कि अगर एजुकेशन कम है, अगर हेल्थी ठीक नहीं है, तो ऑफ कोर्स हाउ कम दे कैन पार्टिसिपेट. ठीक है, अगर आप स्वस्थ नहीं हो, आप पढ़े लिखे नहीं हो, तो आप कैसे सोच सकते हो कुछ बड़ा करने के, स्पेशली हाउ यू कैन पार्टिसिपेट इन वर्क फोर्स, वेदर थ्रू वर्क, पॉलिटिक्स और कम्युनिटी इन्वॉल्वमेंट. सो बिल्कुल ठीक बात है, किसी भी स्टेज पे डिफिकल्टी होगी. नाउ रीडिफाइन द इंटरवेंशन. सो कहते हैं कि देयरफॉर इट इज इंपॉर्टेंट एंड इम्पेरेटिव दैट वी रीडिफाइन intervention such that we not only center it around good nutrition but also adopt a life cycle approach, that is throughout the life cycle of particular group we are focusing on, ensuring that no girl gets left behind. ठीक है, so एक life cycle approach हम लोग adopt करें and ensure करें कि no girl gets left behind. एक भी कोई भी लड़की बेसिकली गर्ल की बात करें, कोई भी गर्ल इस प्रोसेस में छूटे ना. ठीक है, दिस इन्वेस्टमेंट कैन ऑल्सो हेल्प ब्रेक द इंटरजनरेशनल साइकिल ऑफ पॉवर्टी. सो कहते हैं कि इस इंटरवेंशन से हम इंटरजनरेशनल मीन्स थ्रू आउट डिफरेंट जनरेशंस, एक जनरेशन से दूसरे में जो पॉवर्टी ट्रांसफर होती है उसको भी हम ब्रेक कर सकते हैं. वेल नरिश्ड गर्ल्स आर मोर लाइकली टू हैव हेल्दी बेबीज एंड प्रोवाइड बेटर केयर फॉर देयर फैमिलीज. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है, वेल नरिश्ड, वेल एजुकेटेड हैं तो हेल्दी, of course they can take care of babies, of course healthy babies, and even provide care for their families both financially and of course health wise as well. Thus investing in girls nutrition is not only the moral obligation for the state but also an economic one. So इसलिए investment in girls nutrition एक moral obligation या duty नहीं है सिर्फ सरकार के लिए, but even it becomes an economic one, an economic duty as well, with potential returns in the form of greater and more sustainable economic growth of the nation. So positive इसका growth हमें in the form of better and sustainable growth देखने को मिल सकता है. ठीक है, additionally a few strategic modifications to existing interventions can significantly expand the scope of its outcome. So he is not just underlying the problems, at the same time he is also advocating or providing the solutions as well. And even in existing जो हमारी interventions चल रही हैं उसमें भी कुछ modification करके ये किया जा सकता है. So let us see what is where he is actually advocating to intervene. The convergence of various government initiatives such as scheme for adolescent girls within the umbrella of the Prime Minister's overarching scheme for holistic nutrition program. So कहते हैं कि जो हमारा पोषण अभियान चल रहा है 2.0, उसी में स्कीम फॉर एडोलेसेंट गर्ल्स अंडर दिस अम्ब्रेला स्कीम कैन बी सबज्यूम्ड, यू कैन से, और इज अ स्टेप इन द राइट डायरेक्शन. फाइन, provided it is implemented effectively. कहते हैं it is a step in the right direction which the government has done, provided implementation takes place in a desired manner. Targeted adolescent oriented schemes such as the Rashtriya Kishore Swasthya Karyakram could include even stronger awareness. Fine. So of course major issue अगर आप देखोगे कहीं भी खास करके रूरल एरियाज के लेवल पे, तो मेजर इशू जो हमें देखने को मिलता है दैट इज़ द प्रॉब्लम ऑफ अवेयरनेस, कि लोग अवेयर्ड ही नहीं है. अगर गवर्नमेंट स्कीम्स हैं भी, सो दैट पर्टिकुलर एज ग्रुप जिसको टारगेट किया जा रहा है उसको अवेयरनेस ही नहीं है. अगर अवेयरनेस ही नहीं है तो अवेयर कैसे करोगे उसकी बेनिफिट्स को. फाइन. So awareness problem is another instance. Nutrition education program that would help sustain beneficiary compliance. Targeted regionally contextualized social and behavioral change communication. So SBCC, यहाँ पे कह रहे हैं कि social and backward caste की बात नहीं हो रही है यहाँ पे census की. यहाँ पे he is given another context to this, that targeted and regionally contextualized social and behavioral change communication are important. Society के level पे and behavioral change भी ज़रूरी है. Such efforts around adolescent girls nutrition are sure to generate greater demand and to adoption of good practices. ये ग्रेटर डिमांड जनरेट करेगी प्लस अडॉप्शन ऑफ इवन द गुड प्रैक्टिसेस फॉर इम्प्रूव्ड आउटकम इम्प्रूव हो। इसके लिए इम्पॉर्टेंट है कि इफेक्टिव कन्वर्जेंस एंड कोलैबोरेशन, कन्वर्ज करें, कोलैबोरेट करें अमंग ऑल द रेलिवेंट डिपार्टमेंट्स इन अ वे दैट फोस्टर्स अ कलेक्टिव एंडेवर। फाइन, कि एक कलेक्टिव प्रयत्न हो सबके लेवल पे, सो दैट कि जो भी पॉलिसीज रेगुलेशन का प्रोग्राम्स हैं वो कन्वर्ज एंड कोलैबोरेट करें एक दूसरे के साथ। देन ओनली रूटीन ट्रेनिंग ऑफ हेल्थ वर्कर्स फॉर इफेक्टिव इम्प्लीमेंटेशन एंड मॉनिटरिंग ऑफ वेरियस स्कीम्स and to adapt with an evolving landscape is also crucial step in the process। बिल्कुल ठीक बात है कि जो भी हेल्थ वर्कर्स हैं उनकी प्रॉपर ट्रेनिंग हो, मॉनिटरिंग करें हम वेरियस जो भी स्कीम्स हैं उनकी, एंड अडेप्ट करें हम विद एन इवॉल्विंग लैंडस्केप। फाइन, कि जैसे भी सिचुएशन इवॉल्व हो रही है मॉडिफिकेशन करते हुए हम पर्टिकुलर स्कीम्स को इम्प्लीमेंट करें। ठीक है, नाउ यूज एविडेंस एंड डेटा, a holistic narrative on adolescent girls' nutrition, explaining its linkages with overall mental and physical well-being. A holistic narrative on adolescent girls' nutrition, explaining its linkages with the overall mental and physical well-being, individual productivity and overall economic growth of the country is needed। बिल्कुल ठीक बात है, ये चाहिए। This must be packed with an evidence data that effectively appeals to all, to those outside the technical community and must be framed to make it actionable। So data की तो ज़रूरत है ही आने से, until we don't have data, which is the new oil today। So this must be packed with evidence data that effectively, so whatever government is taking the steps or coming up with the initiatives, it should be well evidence based, fine, or data backed, fine, then only it can target the particular group, and we could have this what can be we can have, let us say, actionable measures or of course the steps। This also immediately brings about the need for disaggregated data that allows for effective interpretation। So under through this paragraph he is of course stressing more on the evidence based data or availability of data। As an elected representative, it is my duty, of course, now he is saying that it is my duty as an elected representative, we have an enormous responsibility as well as tremendous opportunity to ensure that the welfare and the upliftment of the nation by prioritizing the nutritional needs of the India's girls। The strength of the nation is measured by its ability to nurture its future generations। Hence, let us work collectively to sow the seeds of healthier, stronger India where every girl can reach the full potential। बिल्कुल ठीक बात है कि of course अगर हर इनके जैसे अगर हर लेटर से एमपी और हमारे पॉलिटिशियंस अपनी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी समझने लग जाए, सो ऑफ कोर्स और किसी चीज़ की हमें ज़रूरत ही नहीं पड़ेगी। फाइन, सो अ वेरी गुड पीस ऑफ आर्टिकल, समथिंग अपार्ट फ्रॉम पॉलिटिक्स। ही इज़ अ पॉलिटिशियन बट ही हैज़ नॉट he has written an article like an expert, let us say, not as a politician। So very good piece of article। ठीक है, you must read and revise as well, give focus to this। So next is governors cannot indefinitely hold back bills। Many instances of in the past you can see even currently many instances of conflict going on between the elected CM and governors in the country, in the different regions of country, you can say। So recently issues have arisen in various states between CM, chief ministers and governors with regard to passing of the bills। So under this of course the title itself says governors cannot indefinitely hold back bills। ठीक है, so एक पार्लियामेंट्री प्रोसेस होता है, एक लेजिस्लेटिव प्रोसेस है कि जो भी बिल्स पास होते हैं कंट्री में, फाइनल उस पे साइन कौन करता है, इट बिकम्स लॉ ओनली विद द स्टैम्प ऑफ गवर्नर, लेट अस से इन द स्टेट, और प्रेसिडेंट एट द लेवल ऑफ सेंटर। ठीक है, सो फाइनल सिग्नेचर जो है और एसेंट जो है वो गवर्नर एंड प्रेसिडेंट्स की चाहिए होती है, मैंडेटरी हो। ठीक है, सो चीफ मिनिस्टर फील दैट द गवर्नर्स हैव नॉट एक्टेड फॉर एन अनड्यूली लॉन्ग पीरियड ऑफ टाइम ऑन बिल्स प्रेजेंटेड फॉर देयर एसेंट। सो चीफ मिनिस्टर्स ऑफ कोर्स खास करके जब अपोजिशन पार्टी की सरकार हो उस पर्टिकुलर स्टेट में, तो ऐसा चीफ मिनिस्टर्स को लगता है, एंड सच भी हो सकता है टू अ सर्टेन एक्सटेंट, कि गवर्नर बैठे हुए उस बिल पे एक्शन ही नहीं ले रहे हैं, जानबूझ के नहीं कर एसेंट दे रहे हैं। एसेंट इज सहमति। दिस इज अ ट्रिकी सिचुएशन फॉर अ पार्लियामेंट्री डेमोक्रेसी where the people elect a government to enact laws which reflect their will. So it's a tricky situation. Why? Because people are supreme in a parliamentary democracy and people elect the government to frame laws for their welfare, and here an unelected person is sitting on the bill. Fine. So that's why it's a tricky. If an elected government cannot legislate, it could lead to a breakdown of parliamentary democracy. So this is what he is saying कि अगर ऐसा नहीं होता तो of course it can lead to breakdown of parliamentary democracy. Governor's role. Now let us focus on the role of governor. Fine. Governor's role in a particular state. So legislature of a state comprises the governor and the legislative assembly. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है. Remember जैसे parliament आपकी constitute करती है president and of course the two houses, उसी तरीके से आपका legislature of a state comprises governor and legislative assembly. ठीक है, ये polity में पढ़ोगे आप लोग, जिसने पढ़ा है उसको पता है. If the state has one house and the legislative council if the state has two house, जिसको हम की bicameralism बोलते हैं. So the governor means two houses. Bicameralism means state having two houses, legislative council and legislative assembly. The governor has little autonomy in his functioning. It is settled legal position that he can act only on the advice of his council of ministers. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है. In many instances of or many judgments, Supreme Court has time and again underlined that governor or president can only, with exceptions of emergency situation, let us say, or suppose government ही majority lose कर जाती है, सरकार ही नहीं है तो advice कौन देगा, but still majority of times, let us say more than 90+% is where in cases where the governor has to act on the advice of his council of ministers. Fine, with the chief minister as the head of the council. ठीक है. So the intention of the framers of the constitution was for the president or governor to act only on the advice of the council of ministers. So intention यहाँ पे underline कर रहे हैं हमारे framers of constitutions के. Actual governance of the country state is by the prime minister or the chief minister as the case may be. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है कि they are the nominal heads, governors and presidents. Actual अगर power को exercise करता है तो that is prime minister and chief ministers. ठीक है. They are the real heads. There is however a caveat to this. एक caveat है इसके पीछे, जो भी हमने बात करी ऊपर. There are certain instances where a governor can exercise his discretion. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है. I said कि not always, but there are certain exceptions as well to this notion of acting on the advice of council of ministers. ठीक है. So of course there are certain situations, instances where governor or president has to act in his discretion or her discretion, independent of the council of ministers, where they take decisions independent of the council of ministers. Whether a governor has discretion or not in a particular matter is significant, since as per article 163 clause 2 of the constitution, this decision of his cannot be challenged. ठीक है. So governor जो है वो discretion बनती है नहीं बनती है in a particular instance, let us say, comes under article 163 clause 2 of the constitution, but the issue is कि this decision of his cannot be challenged. ठीक है. But in Shamsher Singh versus State of Punjab 1974, the Supreme Court held that a president or a governor can exercise their discretion independent of their ministers only where the constitution expressly permits them to do so. So वहीं पे अपने discretion use कर सकते हैं जहाँ पे constitution उनको permit करती है, अपने मन से कहीं भी नहीं. ठीक है. This case is important. Shamsher Singh versus State of Punjab. Shamsher Singh versus State of Punjab 1974. Article 200 states that when the governor is presented with a bill, he can either give his assent or withhold it or return the bill with certain suggestions. The first provision of this article 200 is, so कहते हैं कि जब भी गवर्नर को कोई बिल प्रेजेंट किया जाता है लेजिस्लेचर से पास होने के बाद, तो दो ऑप्शन है उनके पास. एक ये कि वो साइन कर दें, एसेंट दे दें, अपनी सहमति दे दें, और दूसरा ये कि वो उस बिल को कुछ इश्यूज अगर उनको लगता है तो रेज करके सरकार को दोबारा से कंसीडर करने के लिए बोले या अपनी सजेशंस दें. ठीक है. अंडर आर्टिकल 200. ठीक है. चलो. After a bill is present, the governor may as soon as possible return the bill if it is not a money bill, with a message to reconsider the bill as a whole or any part thereof. ठीक है. So कहते हैं कि जैसे ही गवर्नर तक बिल पहुंची, गवर्नर चाहे तो रिटर्न कर सकते हैं that same moment with certain suggestions, because बिकॉज दिस इज नॉट, इफ इट इज नॉट अ मनी बिल, बिकॉज मनी बिल एक ऐसा बिल होता है जिसमें बिल प्रेजेंट किया जाता है विद द प्रायर assent of or approval of either the president if it is to be presented in, let us say, parliament, or with the prior assent of or approval of governor if it is to be presented in, let us say, legislature. So अगर prior approval दे चुके हैं तो दोबारा क्वेश्चन ही नहीं पैदा होता कि वो उसको withhold कर लें, ठीक है. The house has 6 months to decide whether or not to accept this request. So legislature जो है उसके पास 6 महीने का वक्त है कि वो गवर्नर के इस रिक्वेस्ट को माने या ना माने. Once the house returns the bill to the governor, he has no choice but to give his assent whether or not his recommendation has been accepted. So कहते हैं कि जब कोई गवर्नर एक बिल को रिटर्न कर देता है for further with certain suggestions to the council of minister, फिर उसमें क्या होता है कि it's a prerogative of the house. फाइन, 6 महीने का वक्त है हाउस के पास. लेजिस्लेचर चाहे तो दोबारा से उसको अमेंड, जो भी सजेशन दिया है उसको इनकॉर्पोरेट कर सकती है. अगर ना भी करे तो गवर्नर कुछ नहीं कर सकते. और सेकेंड टाइम अगर सेम बिल भी विदाउट एनी इनकॉर्पोरेटिंग एनी ऑफ हिज सजेशंस अगर भेजा जाता है गवर्नर के पास, सो ही हैज नो अदर ऑप्शन बट ओनली टू साइन द बिल और गिव हिज असेंट. फाइन, अकॉर्डिंग टू द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल प्रोविजंस. The second proviso, that was the first provision. The second provision of the article 200 gives the governor's discretion to refer a bill to the president if he is of the opinion that the bill, if passed, would take away the powers of the high court. So अगर कोई बिल हाई कोर्ट से रिलेटेड है तो इस केस में गवर्नर चाहें तो वो बिल प्रेसिडेंट को भेज सकते हैं फॉर फर्दर कंसिडरेशन बिफोर गिविंग एनी असेंट. The procedure to be followed when presidential assent for such a bill is required is set out in Article 201. Now, the discretion of the governor does not contemplate an indefinite withholding of the assent to a bill. But कहते हैं कि कहीं भी discretion का मतलब ये नहीं है कि आप indefinite time period के लिए उस bill को अपना assent ही ना दो, sign ही ना करो, उस पर बैठे रहो, अपने टेबल पे रख के छोड़ दो, ठीक है. Nowhere it is the mentioned, और indirectly directly ये मतलब बनता भी नहीं. So such an action would cause a breakdown of the constitutional machinery. To what extent the governor's autonomy is recognized under the constitution can be seen from few judgments of the Supreme Court. So governor की autonomy कितनी है, कितनी recognized है, acknowledged under constitution, कुछ सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जजमेंट से ये हमें क्लैरिटी हो सकती है, ठीक है. सो गवर्नर्स ऑटोनॉमी के क्वेश्चन पे अगर हम बात करें अब तो कुछ जजमेंट्स देखेंगे जिसके थ्रू हमें क्लैरिटी होगी. इन पुरुषोत्तम नाम्बीदुरी वर्सेस स्टेट ऑफ केरला, व्हाइल डिसाइडिंग वेदर अ बिल पेंडिंग with the governor assent would lapse upon the dissolution of the house, the court considers the provision of the article 200 and 201 to hold that it would not. So कहते हैं कि इसके अंदर इस पर्टिकुलर केस में, दैट इज पुरुषोत्तमन नाम्बीदुराई वर्सेस स्टेट ऑफ केरला, व्हाट हैपेंड कि केस बिफोर प्रेजेंट किया गया सुप्रीम कोर्ट के सामने कि अगर कोई बिल है जो पास कर चुके लेजिस्लेचर बट हाउस डिसॉल्व हो जाता है, बट दिस इज पेंडिंग विद द गवर्नर्स एसेंट, कि अभी गवर्नर ने उसको साइन नहीं किया है बट लेजिस्लेचर पास कर चुकी है, लेट अस से डिसॉल्व हो जाता है हाउस, तो क्या ये बिल भी लैप्स कर जाएगा? तो कोर्ट ने कहा कि नहीं, ऐसा नहीं होगा. It held that since there is no time limit prescribed under Article 200 and 201 for the governor or the president to give their assent, unlike the House which has 6 months to decide the recommendations of the governor or the president as the case may be. So कोर्ट ने कहा कि बिगेस्ट लैकुना जो है वो इन आर्टिकल्स के अंडर है. जैसे इन आर्टिकल्स ने ये तो मेंशन किया हुआ है कि अगर गवर्नर या प्रेसिडेंट कोई सजेशन देते हैं काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर को या उस पर्टिकुलर बिल पे, सो हाउस के पास 6 महीने का वक्त है कि वो उसको चाहे तो इनकॉर्पोरेट करे, शामिल करे उनके रिकमेंडेशंस को, या ना करे, बट 6 महीने में उस बिल को वापस गवर्नर के पास या प्रेसिडेंट के पास भेजना होगा. बट दिस इज नॉट द केस विद वाइस वर्सा. ऐसा नहीं है कि गवर्नर या प्रेसिडेंट के पार्ट पे ये मैंडेटरी नहीं है या टाइम की प्रोविजन नहीं है कि 6 महीने के अंडर ही अंडर आपको एक्सेंट देनी होगी. फाइन. सो दिस इज द बिगेस्ट यू कैन से लैकुना और a loophole in the articles or the law itself under Article 200 and 201. Fine. Moving further. So it suggests that the framers of the Constitution did not want a bill pending assent from the governor to be at risk of lapsing on dissolution of the House. सो कहते हैं कि इन सबसे ऐसा लगता है कि हमारे जो फ्रेमर्स ऑफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशंस थे वो ये नहीं चाहते थे कि बिल जो पेंडिंग है फॉर द एसेंट ऑफ गवर्नर वो लैप्स it poses or becomes a risk of lapsing or dissolution of the house की अगर हाउस डिसॉल्व भी हो जाती है तो उस बिल पे कोई रिस्क है, आई मीन कोई रिस्क हो उस बिल के साथ अगर ये अभी एसेंट नहीं मिला और पेंडिंग विद द फॉर द एसेंट विद द गवर्नर. सो कोर्ट ने ऐसे इंटरप्रेट किया. Though the constitution prescribes no express time limit, the first provision does mention that the governor ought to either give his assent or send the bill back to the house as soon as possible. तो ऑथर ये कहते हैं कि अगर नहीं भी मेंशन है कि भाई कितने टाइम में वापस करना है बिल को या साइन अपनी अप्रूवल देनी है, असेंट देना है, स्टिल फर्स्ट प्रोविजन ऑफ द आर्टिकल और दिस मेंशंस दैट गवर्नर ought to either give his assent or send the bill back to the house as soon as possible. So what is this as soon as possible? Not been quantified anywhere in the constitution. That's the issue with this phrase. Fine, as soon as possible. I mean, to what extent, what time period would be considered as soon as possible, as soon. ठीक है? So that's the issue. In Shamsher Singh, the court held, though not explicitly, that it is the only with respect to the second provision that the governor exercises discretion independent of the council. So only with the second provision under Article 201, court held, though not explicitly, ऐसा clear cut नहीं कहा court ने, but he is interpreting, the judgment कि second provision, that is Article 201, governor exercise discretion independent of the council. It held that the governor की जो power है to reserve bills for the president consideration in one such discretion is one such discretionary power. कि अगर जो states हैं जो राज्य सरकार अगर कोई bill लेके आती है related to which can alter with the power of the high court, so this is one of the discretion lies with the governor कि वो उस bill को reserve कर सकते हैं for president's consideration. ठीक है? The court also highlighted the exceptional circumstances of the governor acting independent of the Council of Ministers. It held that D. Smith's statement on royal assent would hold good even in the context of Indian democracy. ठीक है? For both presidents and governors, refusal of the royal assent on the ground that the monarch strongly disapproved of a bill or that it was intensely controversial would nevertheless be unconstitutional. So return of bill can not be termed as unconstitutional. Second case बता दे रहे हैं, ये कोट कर रहे हैं. In Nabam Rabia and Bamang Felix versus Deputy Speaker, the court also held that in so far as Article 200 is concerned, the governor exercise discretion. This is the second case he is referring to, not second but in fact third case. Yes, third case. The court also held that in so far as Article 200 is concerned, the governor exercised discretion only with regard to whether a bill ought to be reserved for the consideration of the president or not. So कहते हैं कि जो गवर्नर के डिस्क्रिप्शन है वो इसमें है सिर्फ कि जो पर्टिकुलर बिल है वो उस पर प्रेसिडेंट की कंसिडरेशन की रिक्वायरमेंट है या नहीं है. ठीक है? अगर ऐसा है तो रिजर्व कर सकते हैं, अदरवाइज ही शुड गिव द एसेंट. This is important because the court has also held that Article 163 Clause 2 has to be understood in the context of Article 163 Clause 1. ठीक है? तो कोर्ट ने ऐसा कहा है कि 163 Clause 2 जो है उसको रीड करनी चाहिए with context to Article 163 Clause 1, meaning only those matters where the Constitution expressly permits the governor to act autonomously cannot be challenged before a court of law. ठीक है? सो जहाँ पे डिस्क्रिप्शन या ऑटोनॉमी के साथ एक्ट करना होगा गवर्नर को, वही मैटर सिर्फ कोर्ट में चैलेंज नहीं हो सकते, बाकी हो सकते हैं. ठीक है? तो सो द जजमेंट इन नबाम रेबिया has been referred to a larger bench of the court with regard to the issue of whether a speaker is barred from proceedings with deciding matters under Schedule 10, that is anti-defection. Fine? कि क्या स्पीकर को बार किया जा सकता है from proceeding with the deciding matters under Schedule 10. Schedule 10 deals with anti-defection law, while a motion for his removal is pending before the House. So क्या अगर किसी स्पीकर को हटाने के लिए मोशन ऑलरेडी पेंडिंग हो हाउस में, so क्या स्पीकर इस मसले में बैठ सकता है, अपनी जजमेंट दे सकता है? फाइन. कैन चेयर द दिस meet related to to decide the matters related to anti-defection, that is under Schedule 10. So this was the case. The governor therefore has no discretion to indefinitely withhold the assent to a bill. If a bill is presented to him, it has to be returned with the recommendations or given assent as soon as possible. The whole game is about as soon as possible. How soon? You know, 1 महीना, 2 महीना, 2 दिन, 4 दिन, define तो करो. If it takes away the power of the High Court, the governor has the discretion to refer it for the President's consideration. Refusing to act on a bill is in violation of the Constitution, and governor's action or inaction in this regard would be susceptible to the judicial review. So कहते हैं कि अगर गवर्नर लेते हैं एक्शन या नहीं लेते, बिल पे बैठ जाते हैं, so it will be susceptible for or it will be deemed fit for judicial review. Fine, कि उनके एक्शन को judiciary review करे. ठीक है. So another piece, good piece of article today from as far as governor's role is concerned and his assent to bill is concerned. Fine. Moving to the next page. अगला पेज देखते हैं क्या इंपॉर्टेंट है आज के लिए. So this is related to Thailand election, nothing to do with this. ठीक है. हमारा रिलेशन इंपॉर्टेंट हो सकता है, bilateral relation with Thailand, but elections not important. हमारे अपने इलेक्शन इतने इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं होते एग्जाम्स के लिए, तो उनकी इलेक्शन से क्या ही करना है. ओके. Again politics, no use for us. ठीक है. So you can say President of the US India Business Council कहते हैं कि private sector collaboration is the next great phase of India US defense ties. So you can quote this somewhere in bilateral relations. The private collaboration now can take the lead in defense collaborations. Again politics and politics only. ठीक है. चलो further देख लेते हैं, कुछ रह तो नहीं गया. Some miscellaneous facts could be important for prelims. Okay. Okay. You can see, you can have this, you can track down this news as well for our external Home Affairs Minister holding talks with German Australian counterparts. Fine. It is held in slew of meeting on the margins of G20 development ministers meet in Varanasi. Bilateral relations, partnership, cooperation, development issues all were discussed. ठीक है. चलो. Now important facts could be like center to complete 3D digitalization of museums by year end. Besides aiding conservation, 3D digitization of museums can offer visitors new ways to access the collections. So you can see this. So कौन कौन से म्यूजियम है आपको ये पता होना चाहिए. By the end of 2023 हमारा टारगेट है for better conservation of artifacts. They include the Salar Jung Museum, Hyderabad, Allahabad Museum in Prayagraj, the Indian Museum, Kolkata, the Victoria Memorial Hall, the National Museum and the National Gallery of Modern Art. Fine. So all this याद रखना कौन कहाँ पे है. ठीक है. Again politics, Trump, politics. Okay. Again not that important. Okay. Travel insurance. ट्रिप पे जाते हो कहीं, लाइक रेलवे से कहीं जाना हो तो रेलवे आस्क फॉर ट्रेवल इंश्योरेंस विद जस्ट I think not even 1 rupee charging for that. So you must have get yourself insured, not paying even 1 rupee. ठीक है. So I think we have covered most of the things important for today. India World Test Championship हार चुकी है. ठीक है. So just miscellaneous facts you can have from there. I think okay. In defense of the annoying fruit fly, a test bed for genetic research. Okay, research. Okay, so what is 8? Electrolysis, giving water a shock. Okay. So what is electrolysis? What is it? You can have, this giving water a shock. Some people have an intrinsic urge to break stuff down to building blocks and all. So fact. In their first attempt at electrolysis, the scientists passed a direct current through water as the water splits into the elements made up of scientists found evidence of oxygen and dihydrogen at the electrodes. Electrolysis requires an electrolytic cell that consists of positively and negatively charged electrodes, submerged in a solution containing particles of the opposite change. As the electric current passes through the solution, the negatively charged electrode, that is cathode, attracts the positively charged ions, while the positively charged electrode, that is anode. So positively charged electrode is anode and negatively charged electrode is basically cathode. ये ध्यान रखना, might be important for general science related to, for especially state public services, attracts the negatively charged ions. Depending on the solution, the materials in use, the process can release gases from solid even leave behind a completely new solution. So electrolysis has many uses, applications in commercial sector, in particular to extract and purify metals from their ores. One source of green hydrogen is to electrolyze water using green electricity. Yes, this is what under, we have lots of this green hydrogen mission. We have different types of hydrogen as well, and let us say green hydrogen. So for that purpose, we use electrolysis for this producing green hydrogen. So these are the applications. So just keep in mind, might be important, somewhere might be asked. There's some miscellaneous facts. So this was the last page. So that's it for the day as far as your Hindu analysis is concerned. That's it from my side. If you have any query, anything, you can put the same in the comment section. For the time being, keep revising, take care, and thank you for being with us. Stay tuned for tomorrow Hindu analysis.